everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Fabuleux Living with Angela Jones. So happy you can be here today with me on the last day of Black History Month. So excited about that. So today we have a lot of territory to cover. So I'm going to try to do everything and explain things thoroughly, but be as expeditious as I possibly can. So I know you're probably wondering, why is she so dressed up to get in here and get down in the kitchen? Well, the reason I'm dressed up is, Sundays are a big deal in the Black community in particular. I mean, Sunday is when you dressed in your Sunday best, you go to church, you come home after church, and you have a big Sunday spread, which is something that you typically may not have during the week. That's when mama gets down and you have, smothered anything, which we're going to do today, macaroni and cheese and black-eyed peas and collard greens and cabbage and cornbread and pound cake, and I can just go on and on and on and on. You guys get my drift. We go in on Sunday. We go in on Sunday. And as much as Black History Month is about our history, like I think I mentioned to you guys before, it's very much so, because I am a Black woman, it's very much a part of my history and my family history. I learned how to cook and to be a homemaker from my mom because she was a stay-at-home mom before it was, deemed this title, as stay-at-home mom. She stayed home and she raised myself and my two younger brothers. So she did everything from scratch practically. I mean, there's very few things that my mother didn't prepare from scratch. So that's what I was accustomed to. That's what I'm still accustomed to. Of course I go out to eat. Of course I do. Of course I'll venture out and have fast food every blue moon, but there's not too many fast food places I really like, to be honest with you, because I didn't grow up eating fast food like that. So I'm a little spoiled. So today, in homage to all of our ancestors, and particularly the women who got down in the kitchen, our mothers, our big mamas, our grandmothers, today is all about Sunday supper with a fabulous twist. So, disclaimer, I don't eat soul food. Don't take my Black card away on Black History, the last day of Black History Month. But I don't eat soul food. I don't like cabbage and greens and all of that. My father was like, "Are you adopted?" Because they're both from the Deep South. They're like, "Where do we get you from?" But I don't really like it. But I like southernish kind of things. But so today we're gonna do some southern soul food-esque things with a little bit of a twist on them. Some of it might be a little controversial, but I can guarantee you it's going to be delicious and you're going to love it. So, as I said, I have a lot to cover. And as I mentioned, when we got home from church on Sundays, my mom, sometimes she would prep dinner ahead of time. And then she just finished it off when she came home. And then sometimes she had to, prepare everything. For the most part, she always did everything before we left for Sunday school. So she would come home, so we go to church, Sunday school, service, and then she'd come home and she'd finish dinner. My mother, that's why I'm dressed up, would stay in her church clothes, and I have a habit of doing the same thing. It's so funny, the habits you pick up and what you kind of continue to do. But she would come home from church, she'd stay in her church clothes, she'd have her jewelry, everything on. My mother's a very fashionable lady. Hi, Mom. So she would have her still be fully made up with her earrings on. And she'd change her shoes into some flat, comfy shoes like I have on, as right now. And then she put on her apron and she would start getting down. So that's what we're about to do. We're about to do everything, Roxy Jones style. That's my mama. So first, we're going to kind of do things because there's a little bit of preparation involved with our bread pudding. So we're going to actually start with dessert, which I love starting with dessert anyway. So we're going to start with dessert today, and then work our way back because, like I said, there's a prep portion of this. So we are going to be preparing for dessert croissant bread pudding. You know, you're like, and you're being fancy schmancy, croissant. I mean, that's just the way you pronounce it. But if you wanted to say croissant bread pudding, you're like, and this is Black History Month. Can we just say it the way we say it? Croissant. Let's just Americanize it. Croissant. But you know me, croissant bread pudding. So let me just give you just a little bit as I am grabbing our cut up pieces of croissant. So bread pudding is one of those things that is kind of, it's one of those things that's very much so a Southern kind of thing. Of course, people make it otherwhere, and different cultures have their different variations of some sort of custardy kind of dish that's made from stale bread. So I have some bread pudding, some croissant that I already cut up into cubes. These are about 6 small croissants because what I'm doing today is, let me back up. So in the tradition of our ancestors, particularly my mama and my grandmother and my great aunt, we didn't do a whole lot. They didn't do a lot of measuring. They eyeball things, and I know that everybody is not a seasoned cook. So what I'm going to do is the recipes will have some semblance of the recipe. In the description box, I will put some semblance of a recipe. Particularly for the bread pudding, it's for a 9x13 pan. I'm the only one in my house that eats it, so I'm doing it in a 7x10 pound. So I kind of eyeballed it so that I can just kind of deviate from the recipe so that it'll accommodate this pan. Okay? So FYI, like when we're getting to the pork chops and all that, there won't be any measuring. It's just going to be a sense of feel kind of thing, which is very much so in Black tradition. I mean, we don't really do a lot of measuring unless we're baking. We just kind of, you have to feel it. You know, that's what soul food is about. You gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. And I know that comes with time. So if you're a novice cook, I apologize, but I'm gonna try to get it to you as best I can. So, first up, you want to use stale croissant. Why? Because you're putting a lot of liquid into bread pudding between the milk and the eggs and all of that. So you want to make sure that you're using stale bread because it's going to not get as, I mean, of course it's going to get moist because it's bread pudding, right? And it's more liquid than there is the bread, but you want that the stale bread the cream and the milk won't penetrate it as much as it would if it was fresh bread. Because one thing we don't want, you never, ever, ever want to use fresh bread when you're making bread pudding. Whether you're using croissant, whether you're using white bread, French bread, because you can use, any kind of brioche, challah, anything, any kind of bread in those neighborhoods. Of course, not wheat or pumpernickel. You can't, the breads I named are the ones you kind of want to stick with. But you want to make sure that you don't use fresh bread because fresh bread, tip here, will make your bread pudding gummy. Ew, and we don't want gummy bread pudding because that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't like bread pudding is because it can be gummy if someone doesn't know what they're doing. But this bread pudding won't be gummy. So first up, we're going to take our not so stale, because another tip I wanted to give you is that you want to, if you don't have stale, like I just bought these this morning, right? So if you, to make them seem like they're, stale, I toasted them in the oven just lightly, just for a few minutes, just so they would kind of give off that stale texture that you want. And, you want bread that's not so fresh. Bread pudding is great because my grandmother would always make it, like if there was bread left over. and she didn't want to throw it away, and it had gone bad. So it's kind of one of those things that, you know, you don't want to waste it. So, you know, our folks, we're ingenious, or resourceful rather, I should say. So we found another way to use it. And like I said, I'm not saying that we have the whole, you know, we came up with bread pudding, but I'm just saying, as it's changed in the South and things like that, this is kind of how it morphed into being a sweet dish. Because traditionally, you know, bread pudding can go either way. It can be savory or sweet. But of course, we are making this as dessert. So, as I said, I am deviating from the recipe because the recipe is for a 9x12 pan. This is a 7x10 pan. And typically you want to use large croissant. But like I said, I use small because that's all I could find at the store. So I used 6 small croissants and cut them into cubes. And then because they were fresh, I toasted them lightly in the oven. So next up, I use, which is a little different from how my mom made bread pudding, I use brown sugar and white sugar. Because there's something about that brown sugar that really gives this bread pudding a real caramelly kind of taste, but not, I don't want you to think, ooh, you know, it's so different from traditional, but it just gives it a little bit of a twist. So it's really good. So for the purposes of this recipe, like I said, I'm deviating. I did 2/3 cups light brown sugar, 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. You want to take, then I'm putting in a 1 cup of 2% milk. It can be whole milk, and then I'm using another cup of half and half. Add that to the bowl. Start to get that whisk. And then next, we're gonna do 2 large eggs. Whoops. 2 large eggs. There, that one came out better. And we want everything really well whisked. Whisk, 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 whisk. You know, I didn't start eating bread pudding until I became an adult, because I always just thought it looked so gross. Whenever you saw it like in a restaurant back in the day, it just always looked gross. You know, it just looked like old people's food. But as I got older, and then one day I always told my mom, I don't like it, and I tried hers. OMG, I've never looked back. So now I've just kind of made this my own like little spin with the croissant. Next, we're gonna take 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Okay? I'm just gonna glance at my notes because, like I said, I'm deviating from the recipe because I'm making it a little smaller. And then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Because we definitely want it to be cinnamony, that's for sure. Okay. Didn't quite have a full one, so put that all in there. And now, y'all, we have everything in here for our bread pudding. So we want to make sure it's really well whisked. And everything, the egg yolks, oh yeah, that's gonna be, come on. Put that little peek over here. All right. So let's do a taste. Make sure that we're on point here. See if we need to add anything. That's why I kept everything out in case I needed to add anything, since I'm doing it, you know, old school and not measuring per se. It could be a hair sweeter, just a hair. Not a whole lot. So I'm just going to take another, let's just call it, about another tablespoon. Brown sugar. And that's the thing, as with cooking, you always need to taste things. You can't always taste things when you bake and tell, but with a dessert like this, you can. Okay. Grab another spoon. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Okay. So, I want to get these all down. In there. Give it another whisk, just to make sure everything is well blended. And just so you can see, this is the color that you want it to be. It's like a nice taupe color. And that's because of all that brown sugar that's in there. And the cinnamon. And make sure we're covering all the pieces of the bread as best we can. And then let's grab this wooden spatula and get it all. And we don't want it, it's not gonna all go down in there, and that's fine with this because I like it to have a little bit of a crunch on the top, which is nice, but I wanna make sure that all the bread is saturated at least. So push it down so we can make sure that the bread is all sopped up, that's something they would say in the South, by the egg, you know, by the mixture. Or, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Oh, y'all don't understand how good this is gonna be. Woo! Okay, everything is covered. We have a nice covering on all of that. So now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover it with a piece of foil. This is why we want to do this first. And get this in the refrigerator and let it kind of let all those flavors kind of meld together and let the egg and cream mixture start to really soak up that bread. It makes a difference. It definitely makes a difference. So we're gonna pop this in the oven, in the refrigerator for 1 hour. Okay, so next we are going to get rolling on the smothered pork chops. Smothered pork chops are so bomb. Like I said, we smother everything in the South. Chicken, steak, everything. So I thought, because I had some pork chops in my fridge, that we just do pork chops today. Now let me tell you this while I'm getting set up too. The pork chop deal is typically, you want to use bone-in because bone-in has more flavor. But also in the tradition of my ancestors, I'm very resourceful and I'm trying to not be wasteful and use what I have already, right? So since I had bone-in is what it's gonna be for today. Of course you can make them without the bone and still make them very flavorful because this is going to definitely have a flavorful gravy. But I'm just saying, as we know, why do you think we suck the bone? Well, I don't because I don't like fried chicken, but just pretend I do. You know, when we eat fried chicken, everybody wants to suck the bone because that's where a lot of the flavor is in the bone. So, I get it. These won't have a bone, but they're still going to be flavorful and yummy, so you're going to love it. You're going to love it. So, pork chops. And again, we want to get our the skillet. I'm cooking with a cast iron. And I put about 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil in here. Now what I'm doing too is I'm not deep frying the pork chops. Like I said, some things that I'm doing may be controversial. One is because I didn't want that smell of fried food in my home. You know, I have an interview to do after, you know, I wrap up today. So I didn't really want to get involved in all of that today. So we're gonna just do a light fry, and then we're gonna be finishing these off in the oven. So trust me, they're gonna be cooked. Don't worry. So I have the skillet on medium high, and I am going to prepare. Ooh, I need to grab some. I was moving too fast earlier. I need to grab some flour so that we can lightly flour these. Sorry about that, folks. Try to think of everything. Lightly flour these pork chops. So I have these beautiful boneless pork chops here. And I'm only doing 6 of them because, as I mentioned, I'm the only one. My son doesn't eat pork, so I'm not making a lot of them. So you can also, you know, change this recipe accordingly so that you can make it if you have more, you know, people in your family that you need to feed. Since it's just me, and I'm probably going to eat maybe 1.5, and I'll have this over a couple of days, which is great. So I won't have to cook, which will be nice. So, seasoning. Again, season to your liking. I always say salt and pepper and things are to taste. Same with garlic, because I like garlic, so I'm a little heavy-handed with garlic, but that might not be your thing, or you might be allergic to it. So we're gonna season to taste. So, and also we're gonna be seasoning the gravy as well, so that there are layers of flavor. So I'm just using some Himalayan sea salt. Okay. Then we're gonna take some cracked black pepper. And I'm not like, you know, I'm not taking a mallet to these to make them because they're gonna end up really tender. So that step is not necessary in my opinion. But if you feel like you need to do that, knock yourself out. Onion powder. Garlic powder. Like I said, I'm a generous seasoner. One thing I do not like bland food. I can't take it. It's the worst. And especially when you have something in a gravy and it's bland, baby, it's gross. So I'm repeating on the other side. Garlic. Onion powder. Himalayan sea salt. And a cracked black pepper. Ooh, it's a little workout today. Man, there we go. Next, let's grab grab one of my larger bags, but they're not easily accessible at the moment. So I'm just gonna put them right in here. Take some flour. And place it in your bag so you can get ready to dredge them. And they're not gonna, like I said, since we're not doing a deep fry, we don't need them to be heavily floured. So that should be enough. And then to my flour, I'm just going to add some smoked paprika. So I just like the color that it gives the chops. Just a light, you know, help with the browning a little bit. Add a little bit of that. And now we're going to just start to lightly dredge. Just lightly. Lightly, lightly, lightly. Yeah. I love, like, my mom, one of my favorite dishes is smothered, like chicken fried steak. I love like cube steak that you fry and then you flour and you fry and then you put gravy and onions. Oh, and my mom makes the best gravy ever. I've gotten better at gravy, but gravy is still something that is hit or miss sometimes. I mean, my mom even says that for her own, and she's been cooking for a long time, and she says, hey, gravies are hard, but I think I have a little something that's going to help us with that today. At least it helps me. Something new I've been working on too, because I feel like gravy can sometimes be really challenging as far as getting it seasoned. So we're going to be right back, and then we're going to get started with frying up these babies. Right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. So we're going to next take those lightly dredged pork chops, and we're going to place them in our nice hot cast iron skillet. And again, don't feel like, oh, I don't have a cast iron, I can't do this. Trust me, you can still do it without a cast iron. That is not a problem. Don't worry. So like I said, I have those on medium heat. And like I said, I don't have a whole lot of flour, but trust me, they are going to be fried. Don't worry. Don't fear. They're going to be fried. Let's see if we can get all of these in here. Yeah. And we're going to let those cook for a few minutes until they're a nice golden brown. So now, everybody, this is the color that we want our pork chops. This beautiful caramel color. So we're going to take them out and place them on a paper towel to drain while we make our gravy. And get ready for the next part, which is going to make everything nice and tender. So those bits, I don't mind those bits being in there. They're actually where a lot of the flavor is. So next, we want to saute our onions. And use as much as you like. I'm not a huge onion person, but I like the flavor of onions. So, you know, kind of get those onions in there. And get them caramelized. And here's where I say I want to use some of that smoked paprika and turn it down just a little bit. And it'll get those onions a nice golden color. I love that. Now, we're gonna take a little bit, and this is where it can get dicey. But you don't want to put too much flour in. I like to have a little less than what I need than too much because you don't want it to taste, you don't want your gravy to be pasty. So now we're gonna take a whisk, and we're gonna just keep stirring that up with some hot water. So now you just gotta whisk, 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 whisk. Until it gets a nice caramel color. You wanna get all the flour out. A little more water. And you're gonna whisk for a minute. Get those onions back in so we can really get that flavor in there. It's tiring, but it's gonna be worth it. So we're gonna whisk for a minute. And I still like to go back. Like I said, now I'm gonna put in some minced garlic. Just a little bit. Maybe two small forkfuls. Then I still go back through with garlic powder because I like garlic. Like I said, you can do these things to taste. Onion powder, I know there are onions in there, but why not add a little bit more to bring that flavor out? Even more so. Same with the garlic. See that pretty color we're getting? Woo! Lovely. Next is, I know, gravy purists would say, no, but we're gonna add a little chicken broth to it. This chicken broth is gonna have some seasoning in it. And it's gonna help to fill out the gravy too. Like I said, you have to play with it. It's a game here, I'm telling you. And of course we're gonna taste. I'm gonna add the rest of that water in there. And like I said, you're stirring for a while because you want that to get nice and well mixed. Like I said, you don't want it to be pasty, that's for sure. And flour tasting. Gross. And you want to also whisk so you can get all that fond, all those bits from the fried pork chops from the bottom of the pan. That's why it's also good to use a cast iron. So you got another piece of flour over there. Let's see. And sometimes you may have to go through and kind of get some of the last little bits of flour out. Because sometimes it's a little stubborn. And let's do a taste and just see where we are. We're not there yet, but I just want to see where we are. No, we are not there. So here, now I'm adding some seasoning salt. I'm adding some cracked black pepper. Like I said, you gotta play with it. You have to play with gravy. You have to play with it. We're gonna add a little more of the chicken broth. I'm gonna add a little more of the onion powder and the garlic powder. And let's see what we're doing now. So let's get to whisking again. And turn our heat back up. just about there, flavor-wise. So I'm gonna let it sit and not add anything else to it. And also remember too, once we add the pork chops back to the pan, that's gonna add another layer of seasoning and another layer of flavor from the pork chops being added to the gravy. So we're gonna let this go for a little while longer. Keep doing a good little whisk on it. And then we're gonna add the pork chops back in. So next, I gave it a taste and they're ready to go back in. I ended up adding some more onions, y'all, because it looked like, I was like, okay, I don't like onions, but I like the flavor of onions, so it was looking a little skimpy. So I added some more onions, sliced onions in there. And I added a little more of the garlic and a little more salt and pepper. But now, that is definitely the color that we want them to be. And the color we want the sauce, the gravy. So it's great. And you know what I've learned too? If you have a little bit of flour that's still not quite, meshed in, melded in, and it's okay. Really, seriously, it's not going to kill you. And it'll end up probably, more than likely for me, it always ends up kind of cooking down once we put it in the oven. So next, we're going to put these in the oven on 350 for about, maybe about 25 to 30 minutes. We just want it to get like a little bit of a darker color for the gravy, just a little bit, and we're just putting them in there to tenderize. So we're going to do that, and then we'll be back with the rest of our meal. Welcome back, everybody. So while you were gone, we got the bread pudding in the oven, and we also got the chops in the oven, and now they're out. So we'll take a peek at those in a minute, letting those rest. And I'm also boiling some rice because, we have to have something for all that gravy and deliciousness. So that's in the works behind me. So that's what you see going on behind me. So I put the bread pudding in because it's a smaller dish and I need to have the oven on 400 for the cornbread. So I think the bread pudding will be fine at 400 also. I'm just going to keep taking a peek at it to make sure it's okay. And they're both on the top rack. When I put the pork chops in, I put those on the bottom rack because I really wanted them to be closest to the heat and really get a nice thick gravy and to get a little more color to them. So they are delicious. So I can already tell they look so good. So, cornbread. I am not like a real cornbread eater. Like real southern cornbread that doesn't have sugar in it, I can't eat regular cornbread. Like my mother makes something called like hot water cornbread, which is a real deep south kind of thing where you actually she actually boils hot water and puts it in it, and that's the liquid and with the meal and all that good stuff. I don't eat that. Again, I don't, revoke my black card if you want, but I don't eat any of that kind of stuff. But I will because I like sweets. I used to like Jiffy cornbread. But now you don't have to buy Jiffy cornbread. You can make your own sweet cornbread yourself. but of course with it being sweet, it has sugar in it. So I know people who are like real cornbread eaters, like, you know, like people in the South, like my parents, like my father was probably watching this and going like, she's making cake. That's not cornbread, that's cake. And I want my cornbread to taste like cake. I'm sorry, I just do. So anyway, this is a sweet cornbread. So if you're looking for something to really eat like more the meal, the cornmeal tasting kind of cornbread, this is not your cornbread. So just want to put that disclaimer out there. But it's yummy, but it's not like real cornbread, okay? So I already have everything mixed up here. And let me run through everything that I have in here. 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of yellow cornmeal, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. So we're gonna put that in our bowl. That's that. And then what makes this cornbread, another thing that makes this cornbread so amazing is, 1 second. Hear that? Hot butter. So what I did was, I'm using, this cornbread really calls for a 9-inch pan. You know, I didn't have, you know, the exact dimensions that it called for. So I'm using an 8-inch round pan that's 2 inches high. And I may have a little bit over, but I'll just put the rest in like a baking cup, you know, like a cupcake cup or something, and bake it off that way if there's some extra. So we have the butter, and the beauty of putting the butter, the melted butter, in the oven is you're also coating and seasoning the pan, and also it's easy to just pour the butter, the melted butter, right into the batter. You know what I'm saying? So then you don't have to microwave it separately or what have you. You're seasoning the pan, and then you're also getting the melted butter prepared to go into the batter, which is amazing. Now, typically also, I would have liked to put it in a skillet to really make it more of a, you know, like the real rustic, southern-y, soul foodie in a skillet kind of deal. But my skillet, my cast iron I have is a 12-inch, so it would have been too big and would have made a really thin cornbread, which we don't want. We want a nice, tall, fluffy cornbread. And then my other skillets, cast irons, are too small. So tip is that when you do this butter deal in the cast iron, whew, it's amazing, because that helps to get that nice crust on the cornbread, which is really what you want. So you want a nice crust, and it's going to help to do that in this pan, but not like it would in a cast iron, obviously. So we're going to get this all in our, just make sure all that brown sugar and everything is all chopped up and all the big lumps are out. It looks like they are. A few more. Then we're going to put some buttermilk in there, but I didn't have any buttermilk. But tip, take some regular milk, whatever kind you have, except for skim. Whether if you have whole milk or 2% milk or even cream, and just add to 1 cup. You just want to add 1 tablespoon of distilled white vinegar, and then you have buttermilk. I mean, like, and you want it to sit for at least 5 minutes, and I've had mine sitting for a while, and it's definitely starting to curd, which is what you want, which is exactly what buttermilk looks like. So, as I've told you, and I'll probably tell you many times before because it's a major pet peeve of mine, I hate making a recipe and then having to run out to go get something because I don't have it. Typically, I just won't make it unless I'm really, really pressed. I won't, because I just like to have everything I need right there. But if you don't, sometimes it happens that you don't have it. You want something right then, but you shouldn't let one thing stop you from preparing the dish, right? So if you have the milk and you have vinegar, that works. And you can also do it with fresh lemon juice. That either one of those concoctions will create buttermilk for you. Okay, I think we got everything out. We'll do another round. So we got our milk, our buttermilk. Then we're going to take that hot butter and pour that in our pan. I'm I'm gonna roll it around some so it gets all around the perimeter of the pan. So it coats it so it won't stick, and then all that buttery goodness gets all in there. I'm gonna pour that right into our batter. Clean that off before we stick it in the oven. Get this all whipped up. Woo! It looks so good already, and it's not even cooked. Ugh. Then we have 2 eggs. And actually, we're gonna a whisk, so we can whisk this together. Oh, my whisker, dirty. Turn that rice off. All right. And like I said earlier, this is called controversial because not only did I add sugar, which is something that, you know, Southerners don't really like to see in their cornbread. But of course it's common, people do it. This is nothing like new under the sun, of course, because of Jiffy. But it's brown sugar, but I've never done that. So we're gonna be trying this out together today. I normally do granulated sugar. And just wanted to make sure our rice is together back here. And yes, I just did a boiling bag rice because I wanted something quick. I wanted to whip it up. I wanted to know for sure it was going to come out right, y'all, because rice is another one of those tricky things. As much as I love to cook, I don't know. I don't know how to do every single solitary thing. But rice is another one of those tricky things too. So, you know, of course I can make rice from scratch, but with everything else going on, I just want to whip up something quick. So I just did a Uncle Ben's boiling bag rice, so that works too. Now we're going to add a little bit of honey, and I'm only going to do like 2 tablespoons of honey, because I think that's all we need with the brown sugar. And just do a quick check. Yep, we got everything in there we're supposed to have in there. Pour it in our pan. And you don't want to overbeat it. You want there to still be some lumps in it. You know, it's not a cake. So you want it to be bread. So make sure you don't overmix it. Y'all know my deal. Gotta get the last little bits out. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but of course it'll be in the description box in the recipe, but that was a half a stick of butter that I melted in the pan and poured into it. I believe I did mention that, but just wanted to make that known. So now we're gonna slide this in our oven. Let's clean the sides off. Grab a towel. Let's clean the sides off from where we poured it in. Now we're going to stick this in the oven. And let's take a peek and see how our bread pudding is looking. OMG. It looks so amazing. Let's see. Bread pudding is done. there. I'll pull that out in a second for you. But it looks so freaking good. Oh my gosh. It looks really good. So next, we're gonna make, gotta have a green vegetable. I mean, I don't really have to have a green vegetable, but I know we should, right? We want a well-balanced dish here, correct? So, okay. We'll have a green vegetable. Okay. Actually, I don't need any of this right now. We'll set this aside. We'll set this aside. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare our vegetable, which is our green beans. But today we're doing I love green beans. I mean, I know you need vegetables. I eat a few vegetables, but I'm not really a vegetable lover per se. So, if I am going to eat some, it's definitely going to be green beans. I love green beans. Or in the South, snap beans, because typically you just snap them. You know, you cut the ends off. You know, these are fresh. You cut the ends off, and you cut the ends off, snap them. You know, I remember doing that on the porch with my grandmother, snapping peas or beans or what have you for dinner. So these are a little different because these are really thin French green beans, which are called Haricot Verts. They're just thin, they're just French green beans. And these don't take as long to cook as regular green beans. That's the only difference. So you can still do the same thing with with regular fresh green beans. It'll just take a little bit longer to cook than it's going to take mine, but you can still do the same techniques. Now, one thing that I like about fresh green beans, now sometimes I do buy, I mean, let's be clear, I don't always buy fresh because sometimes the bottom line is that's why frozen was created, because sometimes things aren't in season or you can't find them. Not typically the case with green beans, but I will buy frozen. What I won't buy is canned. I don't do canned vegetables. The only canned vegetable I will do is corn. But like green beans or carrots or anything like that, fresh or frozen. And frozen is definitely better than canned because it was fresh, and then they immediately take it from the crop and they flash freeze it right away. So frozen is the closest you're going to get to fresh. So if you can't get fresh, get frozen. But preferably fresh, of course. So the thing I like about, and I'm only making a small portion, and again, we're gonna, do it to your needs. This is just for me. So I just want enough to have for, the next 3 days or so, and that'll be plenty for me to have the next 3 days. That doesn't look that great. So, all you want to do is, of course, rinse them and cut the ends off, and then you're ready to do your thing. So what I'm going to do is instead of boiling them, I'm sauteing these. And what I like to do is I like to saute them first and get a little sear on them in some olive oil, which I already have here in a pan, because when you boil vegetables, you take the color out of them. You notice that you may have had like some broccoli and you boil it. It's no longer that bright, vibrant green anymore. It's like more of a dingy, darker kind of green. But by sauteing them quickly, first in some olive oil with a little bit of seasoning, and then adding a little bit of water to them and putting a top on them, then you're steaming them. And what that'll do is that'll help to concentrate the flavor, and then it'll also, by steaming them, that'll also that'll preserve the color, which is great because we want our plate to be you know, colorful and vibrant. So that's what that'll do. So we're gonna let that get a little hotter. So we have our pan, we have our oil, it's nice and hot. We're gonna take our green beans and put them in our pan. So let them get a nice, you know, a nice little sear on them. I'm going to put some Himalayan sea salt on them. Some coarse black pepper. Just a little onion powder. And I know I forgot my garlic again. I was trying to clean up and I put everything back because I'm trying to get a better habit of cleaning as I go, which is not one of my strong suits. I usually make a big mess when I cook, so this is good practice for me. And I'm not showing this because, we're gonna hold off on that. I'm not showing it because it's really not much to see. Lost a few. We just want to saute them just for a minute or two. But I do want you to see, as we're sauteing them in that olive oil, see how pretty and green they're staying by sauteing them as opposed to boiling them? That's what we want. We want them to have we want them to be almost like pasta, like al dente, like a crisp tender. We don't want them to taste like they just came, like, you know, like you just, you know, got them from the grocery store, but like in their raw state, obviously. But we don't want them to be mushy. That's for sure. And I have the skillet on medium, like a medium-high heat. And I didn't use all those green beans because you don't want to overcrowd the pan because then all of them won't get a nice, you know, they won't get a nice sear. I can make the rest of those for another day that I'm planning on, you know, this is enough for me to have. Honestly, this is really enough for me to have for the 3 days. So I'm going to eat the rest of them because I know I need them. So, you can actually let those go for another second. And then what I want to do too is next I want to add some butter to make kind of a sauce, and I'm also going to take some fresh lemon and put some lemon in there too, so we have like a lemon butter sauce for them. Like I said, it doesn't take long, a minute or two. These are good. You don't want them to go any further than that. Okay? See how some of them have that nice char. And it doesn't matter. All of them have some level of char on them per se. And that's what we want. We don't want them to be totally like grilled or anything. Just a nice saute. But see how they're still keeping their color, which is what we want. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And I'm going to add some fresh lemon juice to the pan. A little more. Then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add some butter. I'm just going to put in like a tablespoon of butter. Then I'm going to put a little bit of water in there so we can do that steaming method I was telling you about. And it's not going to take long. Let it turn down. Let that kind of make like a little bit of a sauce. You know what? I want a little bit of kick in them. Just a hit. So I'm just going to put a little bit of red pepper flakes in there. Just a little bit. Not a lot. put like a little less than half a cup, just a little bit. Turn that up a little bit more, and then those are practically done. While those are going though, we're going to, next I'm going to whip up just a quick little, just put our pork chops back in at the bottom. They stay nice and hot. Check on our corny bread. It still has a ways to go, so that's good. Now we're making a mess here. There's too much stuff out. So next I'm going to just make a quick sauce, a bourbon sauce for our bread pudding. So I have a small saucepan. I have a half a stick of butter, unsalted butter. And then I'm going to take, let's see, I think we're going to put in 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. You know what? We're going to just, brown sugar's already out. I have the stove already set on like medium heat. Turn it up a little bit. But I'm gonna do 3/4 of a cup of, yeah, that looks about right, of brown sugar. We're gonna do a teaspoon, let me see my little guide here, teaspoon of vanilla. I'm gonna do a teaspoon of baking soda. Where's that? Okay, I'm gonna take that off the heat. Green beans are done. I'll show you what those look like in a second. A teaspoon of baking soda. We're gonna put those on our burner, and we're just gonna let that all melt together and boil for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes on that. Let me grab a whisk. Wash. Let me whisk. I see with this, I'm gonna have to buy many more baking supplies or cooking utensils, so I don't have to do this every time. But thanks for being patient with me as we're going through this journey together. This is really a lot of fun. So we're gonna whisk, 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 whisk. Great. And then we're going to take some cream, heavy cream, or half and half, or you can use whipping cream, or you can use buttermilk. But I'm going to use half and half because I want there to be a little more of like a richness to it. And we're going to do a half a cup. And we're just going to whisk, whisk, whisk. And it's going to be more of a, it's not going to be a thick sauce. It's going to be more like a thin, like a syrup that's going to go over the bread pudding. So we're going to let that go. And let me show you how pretty our green beans are. See how they kept their color? We have a little lemon sauce for them. And it's perfect because, ooh. Stop trying to be cute, that's too hot. They're still like they're not mushy. No, you know, you go to, after service, I need a little more salt. Just a little bit more. That's the beauty of seasoning as you go. And it could use a little more garlic. And for me, that's a little. And some cracked black pepper. And then that'll finish that off. That's going to be perfect. I'm going to mix that on in. But you know how you used to, you know, like back in the day, you would go to like after church and they'd sell dinners or whatever in the, because they were canned green beans usually. And they'd be so mushy. Ew, gross. That's not a good look. But these, they're a good look. Let's go back to whisking. And this is practically done. And this is what we want it to look like. We want this to be a light sauce, right? Just a very light brown sugar syrup. But what we're going to do though, because you know we just have to, we're going to add a little splash of bourbon to it. Just a little. And that's optional. You don't have to do the bourbon. But it just gives it another little layer of flavor and it cooks down. So, you know, if you don't drink or anything like that, or you're serving it to kids, you may want to omit it altogether. But if you're, like, I don't drink, but I like the taste of bourbon and like something like this, like a sauce when it's flavored and everything. It's really good. It makes a difference. It gives it another, you know, another flavor profile, which is great. So we'll keep that going. Reduce that. Let that go just for a few more minutes and get it to a boil, and then we're going to let that go. And let's check our cornbread and see what's happening there. I'm going to put some foil over it. What I should have done, and that was my mistake, is I should have put a little less batter in because I forgot that it was for a 9-inch pan. Darn it. So okay, we'll make it work though. Sometimes these things happen in cooking, so you gotta learn how to roll with the punches. So what we're gonna do is, I'm going to take some of this out so that it can cook on the inside. Off. We don't want that to boil any longer. We'll take that off the heat. Our brown sugar syrup. And I'm just going to cover this, which is already getting pretty brown, and let the cornbread go for a little while longer. And then when we come back, we'll be ready to plate up and eat. Yo, be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are all set. We have our delicious, I want you to see how golden and gorgeous these pork chops are. You see the little bits of the, oops. You see the little bits of the garlic in there and that nice golden caramelly colored gravy, but it's not super thick. It's in between like a gravy and a jus, but it'll thicken up when you warm it back up. But I just added a little more water to it because it had thickened up a little too much, but then it'll thicken back up again. It's the beauty of gravy. So I have some rice that I've already plated, and I'm going to take a piece of that gorgeous pork chop some of that gravy around it. You know, we gotta, you know, tilt the pan, get it out good. So it's, I like a lot of gravy, so forgive me on a little more. Okay, and actually, you know what I should have done, because I had this fresh parsley here. Oops. Give it a quick rinse and dry it. I'm just gonna put a little fresh parsley on it, give it some color. That's the thing too when you're preparing a gravy and things like that, and things that are brown. You want something to kind of give it a little zhuzh. And that's what fresh parsley will do. I'm gonna put a little here on our plate. Yum! Then we'll take our Haricot Verts and place them right there on the side. Let's turn this oven off. And then let's give this a nice cleaning. And these are my great aunt's. This is her china. So this china is older than my mom. My mom just turned 75, so this has been in our family. I'll be able to pass this on to Darius and his family. So it's a family heirloom. So I figured it was very fitting for today. So there is our smothered pork chops over a bed of rice, our Haricot Verts with a little lemon butter sauce. Then we have our delicious cornbread. I tasted it while we were on break. And for me, it could have been a little sweeter. So you can actually, you know, add a little butter if you like. Somebody might say, okay, Ange, it's stopped. But I'm gonna play around with it a little bit. But it's nice and thick, but it's very tender, nice crumb. Let's just give it a try. Very light, but it's not too cakey. You know it's cornbread. And I like the color that the brown sugar gives it. Really good. Now, I'm gonna cut into these pork chops that did not need a knife. That's how tender they are. So good. Really good when you can just cut into them like that. No knife necessary. That's what we want. Delicious. And the beauty, very tender. You can taste the onion, you can taste the garlic. Not overly salty. The beauty of this is they'll be better tomorrow. They'll be even better tomorrow, but really good. Let's try a Haricot Verts, also known as green beans. Delicious. They have a nice crunch to them. And of course, if you want to, you can cook them longer, but they're actually the perfect texture, just the way we did it. So we're gonna put that aside. And now, for the grand finale. Our bread pudding. So, this is what it looks like. See how it's nice and toasty, but you can smell all the cinnamon in it. Oh, now it's gonna be, because I made mine in a thicker, and a smaller pan. It's gonna be a little thicker. Some people don't like it thick. I know my mom doesn't like hers thick. I don't mind it. I don't want it super thick, but that is perfect. That is perfect. So good. That's how we want that to look. Then we're gonna just take a little bit of that syrup and pour it right on top. You can also, if you want, you can add ice cream. If you like, excuse me, whipped cream, whatever. But I find that it's fine just like this. Excuse me. Got so excited. Oh man, it's so good. It's not too sweet. It's just right with the brown sugar, you know, in it to kind of give it that caramelly kind of taste. Then it has the cinnamon, and then the touch with the bourbon, the brown sugar bourbon syrup on top. Delish. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's show just as much as I enjoyed preparing it. I'm in my happy place right now because it's Sunday. I'm starting off the week, you know, on a great note. I've had great food. I like a bountiful spread, you know, to eat today and to eat on for the next couple of days. But I'm very grateful for our people, how we've persevered, how we've overcome. Still a lot of work to do, people, as we know, but we are soldiers. We keep it moving. So, of course, there'll be many more shows like this. This is not limited to Black History Month, but I could not let the month go by and not acknowledge it in a very grand way, which is what we do on Sundays. So, have a wonderful day, everybody. Have a great week. See you soon, Wednesday. Follow me on Instagram. Like, subscribe, comment. And FYI, part 2 of the Black History Month spotlight I was doing on Black-owned businesses, I'm going to be doing on Instagram. So make sure you're following me so you can see the other Black-owned businesses that I'm going to be highlighting as we close up the month. Blessings. I don't know where to go. I keep eating this, do I eat the dessert?